Picture this. You've had a successful corporate career, you're an expert in your field, and you decide to hang out your shingle as a consultant. Clients should be beating down your door, right? Wrong. That's exactly what happened to today's guest, Tom McKeown. As a former chief of staff and marketing expert, he thought that his corporate success would automatically translate to consulting success. Instead, he got a harsh wake-up call that led to some fascinating discoveries about what actually works in the consulting world. In today's episode, Tom shares the exact LinkedIn outreach strategy that landed him a major client in just 3 weeks, why he abandoned expensive outsourced sales in favor of strategic partnerships, and the biggest mindset he had to make to go from corporate optimization mode to consultant growth mode. If you've ever wondered why your corporate skills aren't translating to consulting success, or if you're looking for practical strategies that actually convert prospects into paying clients, this episode is for you. Let's dive right in. Welcome to today's episode of the Thriving Through podcast, the podcast for self-employed consultants by self-employed consultants. And today, my guest is Tom McKeown. Tom, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad to have you here today.
Hi, AJ. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great treat to be with you and your audience today.
Well, wonderful. Well, tell us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been a self-employed consultant.
Absolutely. So, again, I'm Tom McKeown. I'm based in the Boston, Massachusetts metro area, and I'm a B2B Go-to-Market Consultant, principally working with B2B SaaS technology companies. And I generally work on problems related to go-to-market, product, price, pitch, promotion, and place, and helping companies not only target their markets better, ultimately sell more products or optimize their sales cycles, and ultimately increase their revenue share. And I've been on the solo consulting journey for the past 2.5 years. I started in February of 2023, coming out of a long time corporate career in marketing, and most recently as a chief of staff to a couple B2B SaaS technology companies. And it's been quite the wild ride since then.
Okay. Well, I want to hear more about that in just a moment. But the first question I have, so a little over 2 years,
Yes,
almost 2.5. Are you where you thought you would be?
it's a great question. In some ways, yes, and in many more ways, no. I will say, I will admit that jumping into the solo consulting journey, I had, I would say, a kind of a naive perspective on what the day-to-day really entails in terms of being out on your own and building your own business. My mindset was in the place of, well, I have these years of corporate experience, and not to sound arrogant, but I have a pretty good experience in my area and have been successful in my corporate career. So that must logically mean that clients will come knocking on my door and be enthused beyond belief to know who I am and how I can help them. And it took me about a week to realize that's not the case at all. I like to joke with friends and family that I left my corporate job as a chief of staff to become an entry level BDR rep for a no-name company, for a boss who's kind of a jerk. So it's been a huge journey in terms of self-discovery and really understanding what you need to do to be successful. And I am by no means where I want to be yet, but we are trending in the right direction, certainly. And I would say the biggest conception, and happy to delve deeper into this, is what business development means for a solo consultant or a solo entrepreneur, and how you actually build a process around that, that scales your business, whether it be finding more prospects or improving your conversion rate through prospects, how to run discovery calls, how to price your services, how to close deals. That's I think
Ooh,
those are
yeah.
all skill sets that from the corporate side, unless you've been a direct seller, you typically don't get a lot of exposure um, to those processes and what methodologies may work. So it's really about finding a process that works for yourself, in my opinion.
So you helped companies with their go-to-market strategies, but when it came to you being on your own, implementing go-to-market strategies, you found out that go-to-market for a self-employed consultant is a little different than go-to-market for a software product.
Precisely. Yeah, it's the meta-analysis is right on point there. And I think there's a multitude of things there that might cause kind of a disconnect. One, obviously your own self-perception of what you do and what the market needs. And I think honestly the thing is, at the end of the day, when you're selling value to clients, i- it's not really about what you think. It's about the client first and foremost, or the prospect first and foremost. What is their problem? What are they trying to solve? What's keeping them up at night? What's worrying your stakeholder about losing their job, or the company about going out of business or entering a downturn? It has to be prospect client focused first from my perspective. And all these whimsical great ideas that I have in the back of my head or that I've developed over my corporate career don't really account for much unless you can connect directly with that client, understand them completely, understand the problems that they face completely, and only from that understanding, in my opinion, can you actually build services and solutions that can cater to them. So I think the biggest misconception about going out on your own is you have full control. You're the master of your own destiny, and it can be true in a sense, but ultimately, your number one responsibility is to your target market and to your clients, and so you have to understand and connect at every possible level with them first and foremost. They are your ultimate boss at the end of the day, from my perspective.
Absolutely. They're not, they didn't wake up this morning and say, I'm going to hire a consultant.
Exactly right.
They wake
Exactly
up this
right.
morning and say, I have a problem that I can't solve. And maybe this Tom McKeown guy can help me.
That's
You
exactly
know?
right. And I think from like a marketing perspective, again, focusing on that problem first and foremost, being able to diagnose what those problems, and ultimately, I think if you really want to scale the business and not jumping ahead too much, it's about finding the most expensive, complex, challenging problems to solve, um, and going as deep as you possibly can within the area of that problem set, right? And so when I think about marketing now, it's not about myself or my company. It's about B2B CMOs or B2B sales leaders, go-to-market leaders, and the incredible challenges that they're facing, particularly in this climate right now. So for any, I would say, inspiring solo consultants or entrepreneurs, I think the number one piece of advice I would say right off the bat is understand completely and holistically who you're going to try to sell to. Um, Talk with them, meet
Yeah,
them
I
where
was
they
just going
are.
to ask
Yeah.
how you do that. How did you do that?
So, and pardon my coffee sip here. I gotta get the juices going. I would say face-to-face conversation is still optimal in my perspective. So, again, I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, and we have a pretty extensive B2B SaaS technology space up here. So, um, I'm blessed in the regard to have a lot of very intelligent, smart, capable people within my immediate space. So connecting with them on a personal level is something I always try to achieve. in a remote world too, though, there's a multitude of options for connecting with people through webinars, networking groups that meet virtually, virtual trade shows, symposiums, seminars. Um, so I try as much as I can to attend these events or join groups or follow media channels that cater to my target market and again meet people where they are.
Okay. I'm curious when say you're talking to somebody at a networking event that meets your criteria as your ideal client, how do you get that? What kind of questions do you ask to get at the problem?
That's a great question. So I will say fundamentally, if I'm in that situation, I want to make sure that I'm focused solely on the prospect or the contact in this case, right? So um, I think about it kind of like a journalist in a way. Learn more about their background, what their professional path was, how they got to their position, what inspired them to take on the role that they're in currently. And then there's obviously the demographic or stuff around how long you've been in the role, what's your team size. But I like to focus a lot, not to get too deep in a first date environment, so to speak, but kind of
Mhm.
ask the broad psychographic questions about, what's keeping you up at night at this current role? What's got you stressed out? What gets you excited in the role? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What are you looking to do over the next month, 3 months, 6 months? For my market specifically, B2B CMOs and marketing leaders, the turnover rate is quite high. The average tenure of a B2B CMO, as of recent data I reviewed, is about 18 months.
Oh boy.
And that I think speaks to a multitude of factors in terms of maybe companies fundamentally not fully appreciating the strategic perspective marketing can provide. From my perspective, marketing should be kind of the brains of the organizations in a lot of way, with embedded um, perspectives into sales, product management, operations, et cetera, et cetera. But the common misconception, I chatted with one person recently. It's like, oh, marketing is just the website and pretty brochures. And
Au
so
contraire, mon frere.
exactly. And I mean, I have a whole diatribe I can go on how marketing could better market marketing itself.
Mhm.
I'll save your audience from that. Um, but if a company only sees marketing as a tactical function, then by design there's going to be a lot of turnover in that, because you're going to have trouble attributing marketing efforts to revenue or understanding how marketing can really shorten sales cycles and improve bottom line revenue growth. So within that context, there's a lot of um, challenges that my target market faces. So for me, being well versed in those challenges and being able to I joke about being a human golden retriever when I'm at these networking events, but really being friendly, engaging, charismatic, funny, charming. The soft skills are critical, but ultimately being genuinely interested in the person that you're talking to and whatever challenges or opportunities they're facing, and then just trying to connect with them on that
I'm
level.
just showing you my I don't have a golden, but funny when you're talking about the golden retriever, he jumped up on my arm.
Oh, right on cue.
Said you're talking about dogs. I'm sorry,
And
didn't mean
I
to
have a
interrupt
I
that.
have a dog here as well, so I try to cater to him and have him be my spirit animal guide in terms of these conversations.
Yes, he's my virtual assistant, except he's not virtual. And he's not much of an assistant, but he's a good companion.
Team
Anyway,
morale
back
is
to
important.
yes, exactly. So back to you.
Yeah, so I would say for any person thinking about stepping into the solo entrepreneurial journey, along with understanding the target market, understanding the buyer principally, those are and those two go hand in hand. But being able to empathize, be a good journalist in a sense, and really put the person that you're talking to first and foremost. Be genuine in the questions that you ask. And I would say, and learning from experience, when you're in these contexts, don't try to sell right away, because the minute you're going to go into your spiel about how great you are and what you do without adequately learning this person's context, the worse you'll do from my perspective. It's very, very counterintuitive. The more, I think, to be a better seller, you have to be a better listener first and foremost, a better question
Yep.
asker, secondly, and have that ability to genuinely connect with folks and show that you care with them, care about them on a human level, fundamentally.
Here's a question, because I absolutely agree with you. But there comes a time when you've uncovered their problem, when they're
Mm,
starting to get a sense that you know what you're talking about and that maybe you could help them. And I think a lot of people, consultants, are a little afraid to go into the
yeah.
sales, into the a little more of, here's how I can help you, would you be interested? So how do you get, we're having a conversation, you're essentially doing research to find out what the problem is and what they're struggling with, but there comes a time when there are some signals from them
Yes.
that you could move into a little bit more about the sell. How do you handle that?
So that's a phenomenal question. I will have to give credit to Alan Weiss, a seminal B2B consultant, and in his book, which I highly recommend for anybody starting this journey, Million Dollar Consultant, he talks about this phenomenon in terms of the concept of the turn, quote unquote. And from my perspective, if you've done your discovery right, had genuine prospect first interactions, qualified them, understand them from their context, the language they use, how they communicate about the problems, how they self-diagnose the problems, what business impact the problem's having, and
Mhm.
um, have all of this context available um, in your conversations with them following up. Not that you should be pitching your services proactively, but your perspectives on these problems can be how I would say, planted along certain steps throughout the sales journey, right? So, if they have a problem, for example, with their go-to-market strategy around product market fit, you know, I have some literature about that problem, about how to build a target account market and how to take a buyer focused perspective in terms of identifying the buying criteria. So on a second level, for these people in their market, what do their buyers really care about? So I would recommend being as open and genuine and um, generous in terms of sharing material, content, perspectives around these problems fundamentally. And then when you get that signal in terms of when a prospect's, ready about thinking about a solution, then you can naturally have the conversation. Well, Mr. X or Mrs. X, as you've known from our conversations, I have experience in the area ABC, and would love to put together a proposal of what we can do together in terms of solving your problem and putting you in a better place, 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road. So from my perspective, the more generous you are in sharing that material and the more open and transparent you are in eliciting the responses from your prospects, the easier that transition will be. On the converse, the worst I would say is, um, you know, just sending out blanket communications to quote unquote prospects without any context and then trying to immediately sell them after the first message or the second message. Because of the lack of that discovery and qualification process, the chances of that approach succeeding is going to be exceedingly rare. And you would typically see firms or folks running those type of strategies. It's more of a volume-based approach than um, um, a quality-based approach, I would say.
Right, right. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk
Sure.
specifically. When we talked earlier, you said you found your first major client through LinkedIn outreach. And I
Yes.
know there are a lot of us sitting there going, okay, I don't think I've ever had a client from LinkedIn outreach. What specifically worked in your approach that we other consultants might replicate that we can learn from?
Sure. And it's an interesting story, and I would say um not to discredit anything, but LinkedIn it can be a challenging platform in this regard. So I think you obviously have to do the right things, so to speak, but there is going to be a level of luck or good fortune involved. And in terms of the conversion rates, um, LinkedIn outreach is probably going to be significantly lower than, soliciting referrals through the network that you already know, or even meeting in person in these networking groups we discussed. But all that aside, basically the story was I was searching through LinkedIn through the jobs category and seeing who is looking for marketing leaders, marketing strategists, CMOs, contractors, freelance, etc. And for this prospect specifically, they were searching a job posting for somebody essentially with my background. So it was a good fit right off the bat. And
Mhm.
I direct messaged the job poster directly. And essentially the spiel is, hello, Mr. and Mrs. X. Noticed you're posting for marketing manager, a position involving 1, 2, 3. Um, I thought I'd reach out directly since my skill set matches well with what you're looking for. Would love to chat about it. And then salutations, Tom. Um, I think the CTA in that type of message, not to get too granular, but the CTA focusing on worth a chat or would love to chat or would love your feedback, something to elicit a response from them, I think is critical and kind of um, getting to the next step. So once that initial outreach was received, they responded actually immediately to me, which is great because that communicated to me that this was a very prioritized role. It was critical for them to fill it. Um, so we shared a couple emails back and forth, kind of delving into, like I mentioned, what they were looking for, what their problems, what they were facing, what the business challenges were, and then shared my elevator pitch with them, specifically aligning to their pain points. And we hopped on a call. I think it was a Friday, so we hopped on a call Monday, walked through everything, had a secondary follow-up call next week where we did discovery essentially. And then the week after was proposal review, and the deal closed the week after that. So it went from a LinkedIn outreach on a Friday at the beginning of October to a closed deal at the end of the month, which was fantastic. And not, I would say, obviously, it can be replicated, but there's going to be that conversion issue that we talked about. And ultimately, a lot of these things can be outside of your control. For example, they lose um, resources for the job posting or a consultant bucket in this case. People move on to different roles, priorities change. So there, I think keeping in the back of your mind that there's going to be a lot of things outside your control that you're going to have to account for through this process. But for this example, it was kind of like a dream scenario. And now I only wish I could replicate it more often.
I was going to ask, is it part of your go-to-market strategy, your business development strategy on a regular basis?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing you can do as a solo consultant is block off time daily um, for you to do your own business development work. And whatever motion works best for what you're selling, you're going to discover that through trial and error. There has to be a little bit of a trial and error process and an optimization process as part of it. But I think it's critical to book that time off daily. So I book off, at minimum an hour a day for myself to do this work. If it's super, super busy, um, you know, at least at minimum 15 minutes a day. And that can be connection requests, engaging with your prospects on LinkedIn, liking their posts, commenting on their posts, sharing information genuinely. My perspective when it comes to this is always try to add value. So the information I share is from the perspective of being genuine, caring about their problems, and um, the information has to align with possible ways to think about that problem, or plant the seeds for possible solutions to that problem from my perspective.
Okay. It sounds like you do a lot with LinkedIn. What other marketing strategies or activities do you do?
Yeah,
That, and
great
you also
question.
talked about networking or tapping into your local community.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think being involved in the local community is critically important. You want to make sure that you're not leaving any deals out on the table that could be easily sourced within your area. So that's another big component. And thirdly, and I'll admit I'm trying to get better about this, but thought leadership and content marketing. So I'm trying to ramp up my LinkedIn posting specifically. So talking about the key topics within the market that I serve, why it's important, what the challenges are, uh, what a potential framework of solutions look like. And I think from this perspective, it's crucially important to actually have a point of view on it. And I would argue a lot of consultants play it too safe when it comes to the content they're posting.
Mhm.
If you're not taking a point of view, you're not really saying anything, and you're not going to elicit a response from people. So, counterintuitively, I think it's better to have a controversial post that leads to what some might perceive as negative feedback. The fact that you're eliciting any feedback at all is crucial. If you're just posting kind of boring, generic content that, again, doesn't have a point of view, it's going to get lost in the weeds from my perspective.
Yep, absolutely. That's very true. I'm going to switch to the kind of the mindset area.
Sure.
What has been the most difficult mindset shift you've had to make transitioning from corporate to your own boss?
That's a great question. From a corporate perspective, I think at the time, my perspective was, how do I optimize? How can I be efficient? How can I get this work done in less time? When I was a chief of staff, for example, candidly, the work-life balance was pretty bad. So I was always trying to offload, optimize, streamline, um, cut through this. When you're on your own, um, you really have to be mindful of the work that you're doing. And again, from my perspective, the first year of being out on your own is all about the business development, learning your market, talking to people, having discovery calls, learning what works, learning what doesn't work. And you actually really have to put in the hours to do that. So um, when I was in corporate, I would try to get out of any meeting I could. When you're on your own, you want to have as many meetings as possible with your target market, your target persona. And it's really, I fully believe that you need to have the reps to really practice and understand what's going to work at the end of the day. Um, so, even doing things like sales gyms, or essentially practice sessions where you can practice your pitch, do it with your friends and family, honestly. The more that you refine what it is that you do and what problems to solve. The whole, uh, I would say the better the operation will be at the end of the day. So the biggest mindset shift from my perspective is understanding that business development is on me. No CEO is going to come down and hand me a project to do, right? Or say we need you to
Mhm.
figure out strategy for X. It's all going to be on what you can generate for yourself. And what that implies is the buck ultimately is going to stop with you as well. And that is a huge mindset shift from the corporate environment. Um, I mean, to be frank, in the corporate environment, many folks, and I don't blame them, will try to get out of much as the work as possible. Your incentive is to optimize for 40 hours that you're there, right? Um, where when you're on your own, you're optimizing for how many connections can I have? How many discovery calls can I have? How many proposals can I send? Um, how many people can I add value to at the end of the day? So it's a 180-degree paradigm shift from my perspective.
Love it. Yep. You talked about trying to systematize and scale your business.
Yes,
What's working and what's still challenging?
great question. So I'll start off with the challenging one first, because I think it could offer folks some perspective on maybe what not to do. Um, about a year ago, 14 months ago, year and a half ago, I was in a position where I felt like I was maxing out my BDR process and I wanted to hire somebody to ostensibly do BDR for me or scale BDR.
Okay, and I'm going
And
to interrupt for just a moment.
yes,
Tell me what BDR stands for.
um, so in this case, BDR, business development rep, but a better term would be business development in the context. So
Okay,
optimizing
otherwise
our
known
sales
as sales.
cycle.
Yeah,
Exactly.
otherwise known as marketing and sales.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I engaged with a firm that hired some folks that would essentially be doing sales outreach, qualifications, and ostensibly lead them down a funnel to me hopping on demo and proposal calls with these qualified prospects. And to jump to the end of the story, unfortunately, it just didn't get the results that I was looking for. And the takeaway from that, from my perspective, is when you're a solo consultant, nobody's going to sell yourself better than you are ultimately. Um, and I think it goes to a couple things, but number one is the genuineness. I think there is a disconnect when folks see somebody else selling on behalf of a solo consultant. You know, maybe they're, the lights turn on. They're like, this is kind of, I'm not getting the best vibe from this, so to speak. So um, I would categorically recommend that folks really get in the trenches with their sales motion and their sales efforts and understand it end to nuts. What does the average deal cycle look like? How many calls it takes from having a net new contact get qualified and prospected to ultimately closing a deal? And then, I mean, the great thing to do is once you, like we talked about with the LinkedIn example, once you successfully close a deal, how do you find lookalikes? How do you find folks or companies in that exact similar position that are also, have the same triggers, if you will, that make them look like they're raising their hand for help? And then you can go after those folks. So I would say outsourcing sales to scale your business, at least for me personally, didn't accomplish the goal. Um, so ultimately, now what I'm looking at to scale my business is partnerships. So it's the entire vertical integration play. So connecting with other like-minded folks that offer complementary services and solutions um, for my market at different points. So for me, it could be, it could be website developers, it could be digital marketing agencies, it could be um, sales consultants, it could be ops consultants, but building what I call a network of experts And
Mhm.
it has a multiplicative effect, in my opinion. Not only are you meeting great people that you can network with and learn from, you're also increasing your overall reach from the network effect. So, maybe they don't know somebody right away that you could be benefit from your solution, but they might know somebody who knows somebody, second or third level, and that could come home to roost one day. And um, additionally, it offers you the opportunity to do joint offerings and joint solution selling as well, which, going back to solving complex, challenging problems, the more that you can bundle in to a solution set in terms of, not only am I fixing your marketing, I'm going to fix your sales enablement. We're going to train your sales team on the new go-to-market strategy. We're going to improve the sales operations and marketing operations with the tech consultant I'm working with. We're going to improve your website from a technical level, and we're going to look at your operational cadence as well. So if I can bundle all that together with great people, the premium that I can charge for that is going to be significantly more than what I can do for myself. So that's, and by no means is that the only way to do it, but this is the way that aligns with my values and what I want to do first and foremost. And it's been delivering promising results up to this point.
Nice. And I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into that. Are these formal partnerships or are they somewhat loose and informal?
So I take a very open-minded approach to this, and basically what makes my partner comfortable in a sense. In essence, you're going to be using the same sales skills that you use with your prospects when you're connecting with partners. You want to qualify your partners. You want to diagnose the challenges that they're facing before you delve right into, here's what I can do for you and here's how you can do for me. So you're going to use that skill set again, which is super helpful. And for me, I have formal agreements with certain partners, and for other partners, they want kind of a looser agreement that they're comfortable with. So I put my partner first and try to find out where they're comfortable with. And um, 9 times out of 10, it's worked. There's been one instance where it worked well for a while, but didn't work great long term. And honestly, that's fine too. Not every partner has to be a marriage. Sometimes it can be a year or two relationship and it works well for a while, but things change over time and you got to go in different directions, and that's fine. I think honestly, as long as you're genuine, open, honest, a good person, easy to interact with, um, you can get through these quote unquote challenges.
Yeah, I would say 9 out of 10 is pretty darn good to have 9 out of 10 of them be a good marriage, so to speak.
Oh, thank you. I do have time to damage that ratio, so hopefully my luck doesn't change.
Well, well, let's hope it doesn't. I have one last question.
Sure.
If you could go back to day one of your consulting practice, what would you do differently?
Hmm. That's a great question. For me, like I said, I approached it with a level of naivety that was kind of it kind of quickly blew up in my face. So if I could go back in time, I talked to some folks who were in this role, but I would have talked to way more, and I would have
Hmm.
talked to them sooner. I had ideas about doing this going back years and never pulled the trigger. So I would say for folks, even if you have a smidge, just an inkling of a thought that you might want to go on this journey one day, start talking to folks that are doing it as soon as possible. Um, the more you can talk with folks in the trenches about what it's actually like, I think the more informed decision that you will make, and then the more knowledge that you will bring to the table when you're ready to go. So I'll admit, when I first started and say we're going all in on this, um, I didn't have enough knowledge talking with other practitioners. So if I could go back in time, that would be the problem I would fix, because their insights can help you avoid so many of the common problems and common pitfalls. A lot of them are around the sales cycle, how to sell yourself as a solo consultant, but a lot of it is just about what it's like day in, day out. And again, going back to mindset, the biggest mindset shift is some days you're going to wake up and not know what exactly you should be doing at any given moment. And you have to be willing to embrace that uncertainty and understand how to operate in very amorphous situations. You're not going to have anybody direct you in terms of what you should be doing or what your prioritization is. You have to create that for yourself and understand what are the priority projects I can be working on to make my business successful. And then the other thing would be counterintuitively, and don't get me wrong, serving and helping clients are fundamental and one of the most important things that you can do on your own. But I think you also have to have the mindset to understand that as a solo consultant, your number one responsibility is to your business. And that could mean saying no to clients who aren't the best fit, even if they offer a lot of money. You have to learn also to say no, principally within the context of respecting your time to do business development, particularly in that first year. Because if you don't have a healthy pipeline, you're not going to have a healthy business.
Yes, and that's a great place to end. If you don't have a healthy pipeline, you don't have a healthy business. Words to the wise. Thank you, Tom McKeown. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Tom's journey really illustrates something crucial that many consultants miss. The skills that made you successful in corporate aren't necessarily the skills that will make you successful as a consultant. The key takeaway I want you to remember is this: success in consulting isn't about having the best solutions or the most experience. It's about understanding your market deeply, being genuinely curious about their problems, and building systems that consistently connect you with the right people. Here's what you can do right now to put this episode into action. First, if you're doing any kind of outreach, adopt Tom's approach. Focus on the prospect first, not your services. Ask genuine questions about their challenges before you ever mention what you do. Second, start building your network of complementary service providers. Think about who serves your ideal clients with different services and begin those conversations. As Tom showed us, partnerships can multiply your reach without the overhead of hiring staff. Third, dedicate time daily to business development. Block that time like it's client work, because it is the work that ensures that you will have future clients. And finally, if you're just thinking about making the leap into consulting, start talking to people who are already doing it. Tom's biggest regret was not doing this sooner. Their insights can help you avoid the common pitfalls. If you liked today's episode, click subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to make sure you don't miss future episodes. And leave me a review on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube so other self-employed consultants can find out about this podcast. Until next time, keep thriving through.